Hey, good morning. How are you guys doing? Excited about voice applications? How many of you own Amazon Echo? Okay, a few people. Google Home? Have you seen this? This is the Amazon Wand. It's my favorite device in that family. Costs $20, and I can do this. What is the current time? Hopefully it'll work. Let's see how much Wi-Fi issues it has.
The time is 1:30 p.m.
Right. So it's nice. I can carry it with me, and I like to use it for my usual sort of day-to-day things. I use Squip for tasks, and I built something that actually integrates with Quip. But I'll get to that in a second. The nice thing about voice is that it allows an era of us using computers in a very easy-to-use manner. Instead of the previous set of things where you have to learn how to use a web interface, you have to learn how to use the app, we can try to make it more natural. And I think that's part of the reason why these devices are growing rapidly. Forrester just released this within 5 years, they're expecting 50% of households to have a device. And then it's not just that. Amazon is expected to be launching a device in the next month or two, just targeting for your office desk. So these things are getting to be ubiquitous. And we want to sort of make it possible so that everyone can do stuff on it. So any of you have built a skill for Amazon Echo or Google Home? One person? How many of you want to do that? Okay, cool. So I'm really targeting that group, right? I want to target the average person that just doesn't want to make a skill because it's cool, but wants to just meet a business value. And that's kind of where I started with this. I'm part of the executive immersion team here at Salesforce, trying to look at emerging technologies and see how we can meet that need. This is one of the first frameworks that we are open sourcing, and I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what you guys think about it. But to continue with this Quip example, let's see if I can. So this is my document I've been working on, and if you look at that, it's easy to know what I need to do. But when I'm on the go, I don't necessarily have my laptop open. So I can say, ask QuipBot, what's next on my to-do?
The next item is finished documentation updates.
Right. It's not necessarily very hard to do, but just the fact that you can just pull it from the right places and focus on the business case allows you to do really interesting and useful things. So my biggest critique, and part of the reason why we decided to create a new framework, is that most skills on Alexa today are very command response driven. You ask a question, it responds back. In this case, like what restaurants are nearby and blah, 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 right? Instead, when you work with a human being, it's more of a conversation, and we want to enable that. And that's a large part of the focus of why we've created this. The APIs today to build voice interfaces are very low-level things, and therefore, ignoring even the business needs, you're not even looking at that user experience. You're saying, people in the past have always needed so much training to use an app, they'll need to use training to use this voice thing, right? And we want to sort of let you go away from that to allow a lot more open-ended conversations. So here, I'll walk you through just building something very basically using Violet. You do some initialization. This is just a framework code. Tell it that if you hear, in this case, what's next on my to-do, it responds back. And in my opinion, the key part is that line where it's actually querying the right service to be able to get the data that you can actually provide back. And to a large extent, that's basically it. You write that voice script. Of course, you want to debug and test it. You can run it locally. We provided a certain set of tools, and you can actually go and on a web interface act like a real person. As instead of speaking, actually hitting buttons and saying things. And then, of course, we provided some very simple tools where, after you've done that, you can register it on Amazon site so that you can deploy it on Alexa. Love to be able to add support at some point on Google Home, but that's where we're focused on. And that's the capability that I've shown you so far. Now, what if you want to get data from users? So it's not just asking the system. So you can do things like ask QuipBot, add review to the list.
Got it. I added review to the checklist. Anything else?
No, thank you. It took in an input from me. It wasn't just listening to, I'm going to say, my request string, but it took an input and it brought it into the system. And again, that's not very hard to do with our framework. You just declare the type that you're going to be accepting, in this case, a to-do item, and then you, using these square brackets, say, that's going to be the parameter, I'm going to get it from the system, and I'm going to add it to the list. It's very simple. So what is Violet? It's a Node.js-based framework. We've focused on making the basic stuff very easy. The things that you typically call skills today, want to make that be really, really easy so that you can focus on more sophisticated conversation bots. Right? That's the part where it's going to be, I'm going to say, a tiny bit challenging. Just like building a single-page application is non-trivial, I'm trying to move us from, in the web-based era where you'd first have very simple apps, simple pages to single-page applications. I want to do the same thing for voice. Right now, today, you have very simple things. We want to make it to be much more sophisticated, and we've tried to figure out the right primitives, and I'll get into that in a second. And as you do that, we expect the experience will go up. We've, of course, as we've been doing it and we've been looking at different use cases, we've integrated with Salesforce in a bunch of different ways. We've got plugins, and of course, I'm hoping that we'll get more and more plugins as we get more feedback from the community. And not just that, we've got a bunch of templates out there so that you can look at different examples, see how things have been done, and maybe customize them for your own business needs, to run on against, say, your Salesforce org, or look at very different use cases. Like this is a Quip API. I've done something with a Yelp API as well. Just trying to figure out what will make my life easier. That's a lot of what's been motivating me in building things, but I'd love to hear as to your use cases as well. So the question when trying to build these sophisticated experiences is, what's the right primitive to use? Now, in typical programming, we have methods. You have got multiple lines of codes that you group together in a function or a method. In conversations, what we've chosen is a primitive of what we're calling goals. It's essentially a grouping of a set of interactions between a user and the bot responding back. And then the system says, okay, now that you've got this goal, we can do stuff to support it. I'll show you an example. But in a lot of the sort of classical systems, they call these dialogues. What we're trying to do is something that is a little bit more flexible than that. So back to our example, if I had, say, a heading here, like for bugs, adding an item to my list needs to ideally, be taking that into account. So ask QuipBot, book flight. Okay, I messed that up. Sorry. Ask QuipBot, add book flight to my list.
Sure. I found 2 categories. Category 1 is to-dos. Category 2 is bugs. Would you like to use one of these categories?
Use category 2?
Got it. I added book flight to the checklist. Anything else?
No, thank you. Very simple, basic example, but I think it's highlighting the part where you want to make the basic things easy, and then very often it triggers this conversation between the system. And if you have an executive assistant, like that's what that person would do, right? Like that's the experience I want to have, not necessarily for every question requiring to parameterize and provide each and every piece of information. So what does it look like? In this particular case, when there is more than one category, it is saying, okay, hey, we want to do some more stuff. We are asking which category do you want, and we are adding a goal. It's a very simple, basic primitive, but then when you've got that goal been defined and the user says the category number, then you can appropriately make the API work, right? Now, this is sort of the first version of it. What we realized as we were building this is that this happens often enough, so we've got a simplification. All you do is upfront when these complicated situations happen is you add a goal, and then you define what prompt, how should the system ask for it, and then what should happen when that answer is there. You guys following me so far? Okay, we've got a bunch of examples that'll make that be a little bit more obvious, and feel free to reach out. So we've made the basics very easy. We've added support for goals, and then we've tried to add a bunch of stuff just to make our life easier. Among them is Salesforce integration. So when we were actually adding stuff, we noticed that people wanted to query Salesforce often in some of our use cases. So we define upfront the actual objects that you need. In this particular case, built-in objects have a star attached to them. And then after you've configured it, you say the thing that you want to do. In this case, you want to load data. It's saying, I want to load leads. And the system already knows from the previous step that a lead has names and companies that I care about in my script. Now, if you want, you can put in a full SOCL in there. But for a lot of use cases, you know the objects that you want. You just declare it up front, and the system will take care of actually deciding whether this is a custom object, creating the queries for you, and running it against the setup. This is querying data. You can very simply store it or update data. We've looked at different things, and we're just looking at trying to make that voice script at the end of the day be easy so that you can focus on actually making the conversations work for you. This is not just the Salesforce plugin. You can connect to Postgres, for example. We had a use case. We got templates, as I mentioned earlier, and would love to hear what you guys come up with. In both in terms of just use cases and any templates, and of course, if there's any way that you can think that you'd like to extend Violet, I'd love to hear about it. Deploy it. Wanna hear what you guys do, and we've got our code up there. Just got the green light to open source it. We'll have an announcement coming up in a few weeks, and I'd love to answer any questions. Oh, sorry, wanted to add, this has been possible because of an amazing team and a great set of feedback I've received. And I want to keep continuing on that. I want to hear from you guys what we're doing, what's working, what's not. And I'm expecting to build on this as we go forward. So yeah, questions? Yeah. Back to slides. Back is this way. Okay, yeah. Quiet. Is this stunning, or you're like scratching your head trying to figure out what this is about? Yeah. I can't hear you. So right now we've just gotten this out, and a lot of the use cases where we've been using this have been sort of our internal use cases. But you're asking about the Dreamhouse app, right? We were just talking about it on Monday, and I think we would like to integrate and update it to use Violet, but we'll have to see how fast we can make that happen. So I would love to see that. Any other questions? Yes? You might have to come closer. It's really... Is there something on Trail? No, there isn't. Feel free to reach out. So on the GitHub page, we're going to put a forum, a link to a forum, so that you can ask questions. We should be around on Stack Overflow. I think we should. I think it makes sense to have a community as well. Just reach out to us, let us know what you would like to see, and I'll try to see how we can support it. Okay, cool. I have my cards here if you want to reach out, if you have any questions, or feel free to drop by. Thank you.